I've been on a bit of an Assassin's Creed kick lately, jumping between a couple of them actually, from the modern RPG in Valhalla and back to the old school one in AC Rogue, which, by the way, is really underrated in my opinion. Even though both of them are fundamentally different in many ways, there is an underlying aspect that keeps these games connected. And no, I'm not talking about the name. It's actually the Animus and the modern day story. I know most people at this point probably barely pay attention to it anymore, but at one point, it was what helped make Assassin's Creed iconic. So that led me to make this video on why the modern day part of Assassin's Creed has been such a hit or miss for the franchise. Because at least in my mind, Assassin's Creed has it as a secret weapon, and it somehow manages to keep tripping over it. Think about it, most historical action games just drop you into the past and call it a day, but Assassin's Creed said, how about we strap you into a sci-fi brain hacking machine and make you relive your ancestors' memories? That's kinda wild and brilliant. And that's the thing that made Assassin's Creed feel different. And yet, the modern day storyline has somehow become the series' biggest headache. Sometimes it's there, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's shoved into a comic book nobody reads. This got me thinking, should Ubisoft double down on the modern day, or just rip the band-aid off already and ditch it entirely? Because when it works, it makes the series unforgettable. But on the other hand, it feels like massively wasted potential. Assassin's Creed has always had a trick up its sleeve that no other historical action series could match. It's not just, you're in the past, go stab some dudes in robes. No, the Animus took that premise and said, actually, you're in the future, reliving the past through genetic memories. It's got that cool sci-fi nerd candy sprinkled on top of historical playgrounds. The Animus helped make the franchise stand out. It wasn't just playing as Ezio, Altair, or Bayek. You were also this unlucky modern-day soul plugged into a mind-melting VR conspiracy machine. That duality of the past and the present, woven together, is what gave Assassin's Creed its unique identity. Unfortunately, Ubisoft has spent the last 15 years acting like they don't know what to do with the very thing that made them special. It's like Ubisoft keeps asking itself the same question every cycle. Do we love this thing, or do we pretend it never happened? When the modern day hits, it can elevate Assassin's Creed into something unforgettable. Take the very first game. In AC1, you weren't just some medieval assassin sneaking around rooftops. You were Desmond Miles locked in Abstergo's sterile lab, drip-fed scraps of information, never even sure what's real. That atmosphere was eerie, mysterious, and it made you feel like a pawn in a massive conspiracy. The sterile walls of Abstergo made every breadcrumb of information feel like a revelation. That mix of history and sci-fi conspiracy hooked people in a way no other franchise was doing at the time. Then, years later, Assassin's Creed 3 came along and finally delivered on the tease. After years of being the guy who just sits in a chair, Desmond actually got his chance to run, fight, and play assassin in the real world. You could feel the payoff. This wasn't just background noise, it was building to something. And even if the ending left people divided, for a brief moment, the modern day felt like a genuine main story. Valhalla deserves a mention too. It pulled threads together and gave fans a reason to sorta care again. Layla's story tied back to past entries, with actual connections like, wow, they actually planned this out. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it reignited hope that Ubisoft could still pull off a modern day storyline worth following. But then we have the flops. Unity basically shoved the modern day into a filing cabinet and told players, don't worry about it. You got a few cutscenes, but no real investment, no payoff. Syndicate somehow managed to do even worse, building up a modern day plot only to say, surprise, the ending's in a comic book. Imagine buying a AAA game and then being told the actual story conclusion was DLC you couldn't even download. That's kinda insulting. And now with the latest Black Flag leaks, it looks like they're gonna leave out the modern day story altogether. I get the reasoning, but it also goes to show just how important they think it is. And it's not just about content, it's about the tone inconsistency. It's like Ubisoft couldn't decide if they were making The Matrix, or if they just wanted to occasionally remind you, hey, this is technically sci-fi, remember? Each entry felt like it had a new creative team with a different answer to the same question. What even is the modern day in Assassin's Creed? Sometimes you're hands-on, sometimes you're sidelined, sometimes you're basically watching a PowerPoint presentation. Assassin's Creed didn't need to hand you a 400-page lore bible in the first game, it just gave you the vibes. Being stuck in Abstergo in AC1 felt suffocating in the best way. You didn't know who to trust, what they were after, or even why you were there. Desmond barely knew anything, and somehow you, the player, knew even less. But all of that worked. It created tension, and made every cryptic line, every half-glimpsed clue, feel massive. Now compare that to Assassin's Creed 2. Within the first hour, Lucy is busting you out of Abstergo, explaining everything, and suddenly you're fist-fighting guards like this is some low-budget action movie. All of that atmosphere, the cold, clinical dread, gone. You went from being a prisoner in a terrifying conspiracy thriller to playing confused guy who punches cops. Don't get me wrong, AC2's story was still great, and it's a fan favorite for a reason, but a huge part of the modern day intrigue just kinda evaporated, and that mystery factor is something Ubisoft never figured out how to bottle. The not knowing was better than the knowing in many ways. AC1 teased a massive conspiracy just outside the walls, and it left you desperate to piece it together. When the curtain got pulled back too fast, a lot of that intrigue faded. Imagine if AC2's modern day had been all about planning a breakout from Abstergo, slow, deliberate, every mission inching closer to freedom. That would have kept the suspense alive. Instead, they just hit the fast forward button. I guess Ubisoft underestimated how much players loved being in the dark. Answers can be satisfying, sure, but the suspense of the unknown is what really kept people glued to the screen, and when Assassin's Creed lost that, it lost one of the best tricks in its arsenal. One of the smartest things Assassin's Creed ever did was blur the line between story and mechanics. In the first game, nothing felt like a menu screen, it all felt like part of the Animus. The mission select screen was Desmond choosing which memories to dive into. The tutorial is literally him trying to synchronize with Altair. Even the HUD, the health bar, the minimap, the weapon wheel, was presented as Animus software. That's some nice chef's kiss design right there. And it worked because it made you feel like you weren't just playing as an assassin, you were playing as Desmond playing as an assassin. The Animus glitches, the desynchronization when you failed a mission, even the sci-fi menus, it all reinforced the idea that you were part of a bigger machine. Now fast forward to later games though, and that connective tissue just kinda disappeared. The Animus became little more than a narrative excuse for why you could swing a sword in ancient Greece. The HUD was more generic, the tutorials broke the fourth wall instead of weaving into the fiction, and the Animus identity kind of dissolved into the background. Valhalla at least teased a bit of that old magic again, some Animus glitch effects, a map styled in that digital overlay, but by and large, Ubisoft left a lot of that creativity on the table. And it's a shame because those early design choices were a big reason the modern day didn't feel tacked on. It was everywhere, in every detail, even when you weren't thinking about it. When Assassin's Creed leaned into the Animus theme, the modern day and the past felt connected. But when it didn't, that's where the franchise started to stumble. If there's one thing Ubisoft has mastered, it's the art of pressing the reset button. Every time the modern day finally gains some momentum, they trip over their own shoelaces and wipe the slate clean. Desmond's arc is the prime example. Assassin's Creed 3 spent years building him up, training him, making you believe he was about to become the face of the franchise. And then he dies in a rushed ending that felt more like an obligation than a climax. All that potential energy was gone in an instant. After that, Ubisoft didn't seem to know what to do. Black Flag and Rogue tossed you into a faceless research analyst role that was about as thrilling as a day job at Geek Squad. Unity dangled some cool time displacement ideas, but never followed through on it. Syndicate teased a modern-day storyline only to shove the actual conclusion into, you guessed it, a comic book. Nothing says we believe in this story quite like outsourcing it to a medium most players won't ever touch. And the pattern never really stopped. Origins reinvented the series mechanically, but treated the modern day like background noise. Odyssey continued it, but at the same time pushed it aside even further. Each game felt like Ubisoft was experimenting with how little they could get away with, almost like they were embarrassed by their own premise. The tragedy here is that Ubisoft didn't just waste potential once, they wasted it repeatedly. Every time players started to get invested, the studio hit the reset switch and left the pieces scattered. Which is why, even today, the modern day feels more like a scrapbook of abandoned ideas. So, after years of fumbling the ball, Ubisoft decided to do what every big studio does when it doesn't know what else to do: build a platform. Enter Assassin's Creed Animus Hub that's supposed to tie everything together. On paper, it sounds promising, I suppose. Instead of every game trying, and usually failing, to wedge in its own modern-day subplot, the Animus Hub could act as the central point where the sci-fi storyline actually lives. No more one-off experiments, just one connected space where the modern-day arc unfolds alongside the historical adventures. In theory, that means consistency and an actual plan. But let's be real, Ubisoft's track record isn't exactly spotless here. For every AC1-style masterstroke, there's a Syndicate-style shoulder shrug. The Animus Hub could end up being a brilliant storytelling backbone. Or it could just be a glorified launcher that says, hey, all your Assassin's Creeds are here, please buy more DLC. There's quite a gamble here, because if it flops, it won't just waste another storyline, it could drag down the entire modern-day premise with it. Players are already skeptical. They've been burned too many times to buy into another grand plan without proof. Ubisoft needs to show, not tell, that this time will be different. At the end of the day, the modern-day storyline is what made the Assassin's Creed series feel different from every other historical action series. Without it, you've got a gorgeous playground in the past, but so do a dozen other games. Ghost of Tsushima nailed the samurai drama and has arguably better gameplay. Kingdom Come delivered gritty medieval immersion and realism. Assassin's Creed's edge has always been the sci-fi hook, the idea that history is a simulation, part of a bigger conspiracy, and you're tangled in it. Ubisoft has the ability to nail that unique idea that no other franchise can touch. A historical epic that's also a futuristic thriller. That duality is Assassin's Creed's DNA. Strip it out completely, and the series risks becoming just another historical action sandbox. Potentially fun, but not unique. The irony is that players don't hate the modern day because it's a bad idea. They hate it because Ubisoft hasn't committed. Half-hearted cutscenes, outsourced ideas, disappearing arcs, those are what sour the experience. When the series actually gives the modern day attention, like AC1's claustrophobic mystery or Valhalla's careful callbacks, fans typically want more. And that's the crossroads Ubisoft is standing at right now. With the Animus Hub live, with Shadows planting seeds, and Hexa looming on the horizon, the modern day story finally has the scaffolding it's been missing for a decade. The question is whether Ubisoft will actually use it. Ubisoft has another shot. They could finally give the modern day the consistency and weight it's been missing. Or, just as easily, they could squander it all again, leaving us with another pile of half-finished arcs and lost potential. But here's the truth. The modern day matters. It's what separates Assassin's Creed from being just another history simulator. And if Ubisoft can't figure out what to do with it, then maybe the Animus should finally power down for good. What do you think? Should the modern day remain at the heart of Assassin's Creed, or is it time to cut the cord and let the past stand on its own? Drop your thoughts below. I'm curious to see if you're still holding out hope. Anyways, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like or subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.